What is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. We are still in the middle of March Madness, getting towards the end. It's been a whirlwind, to say the least. I'm joined once again by Brett Gosnell, our NCAA sports betting expert, all kind of expert. Brett, what is going on?
How's it going?
It is going. All right, so we're almost there. We need a quick update on the bracket strategy challenge. What do you have for us?
Here we go. Sharing my screen now. So, some of us hit a good percentage of our games. However, this Bama minus 350 cost just about all of us dearly, except for PD. Yeah. PD apparently chose the Aztec over the Crimson Tide in terms of he thought an Aztec warrior, I guess, could defeat ocean patterns. That's interesting.
I need to ask him what the Crimson Tide represented to him, because maybe it wasn't ocean at all.
It maybe not. I think it's a real thing. I think that is something that has really happened in the ocean before, and it looks like the ocean's full of blood. But I don't know why that happens, but he would know.
It wasn't the Aztec warriors' blood. That much we know.
So, start with silvers. So, you hit a respectable 50% of the games here. However, the Bama minus 350 did cost you dearly. The FAU plus 225, that major upset over Tennessee, did help some, but you finished the week minus 285. And for you, the Houston picking Houston over Miami, that was a costly one as well. That would have been minus 260. So
yeah,
took some big favorites, took some big losses, and so that brings your weekly total to minus 285. Your overall total after your week one winnings of 180, you're down 105 units.
That's exactly why I don't bet in real life.
So, moving on to me, I hit the big favorite Texas. I hit the big underdog Miami. I hit the big underdog FAU. So, looking very good. But then Bama fails miserably, costs me 350. Still a profitable week with those big underdogs coming through. So I'm plus 200 on the week. With my week one totals, I am plus 380. Sounds good, but somebody in a minute did better. Coach had the same lineup that I did. Some big wins, one big loss with Bama. Plus 200, brings his total up to 200. Old Kobe also did the exact same thing I did. Got his total to 200 this week with a week one total of 200. He is our leader at 400 units.
What a clown.
And PD, like we said, he chose that big upset with Bama. That pulled him out of a big hole he had dug for himself with these other picks and brought his weekly total up to plus 175. And that brings his overall total to 175. So there's only one person is losing units here. I'm not going to say who it is.
It hurts. I'm going to be honest. I thought I knew better, and we're going to try to regroup this week. But this is reaffirming my choice not to bet my own money on anything ever. However, Kobe, my dog, I guess if you balance out our totals, we're still doing okay as a household.
That's right. That's very true. I think you'd be second place.
Yeah, so that works. And if you saw with the bracket updates, I asked you and the audience not to ask me about them because all the brackets were bad, which leads us to what I want to talk about some today. On the men's side in particular, this has been a crazy, it's almost too much madness, like I was saying. The Final Four we've got, who would have guessed it? Certainly no one in our panel of experts.
Yeah. The safe to say the wildest Final Four of my lifetime. I think that's fair
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
We've had some wilder individual teams make a Final Four, but South Carolina was pretty damn wild to me. George Mason, VCU, I think, didn't they? With Shaka Smart, didn't they make a crazy run? But the overall collection, the highest seeded team remaining is a 4. We've got a 5 seed, a Mountain West 5 seed, which is like a 15 seed in my opinion. And then Florida Atlantic, who is a 9 seed. Looking at them play, they should have been better than a 9 seed, but I think they had 3 losses all year, but given who they played, it was hard to see them any better than 9. So I understand just strength of schedule, but they look fantastic. And Miami, 5 seed Miami, looking better than a 5 seed.
Yeah, and you mentioned George Mason. I was reminded that Miami's coach, Jim, well, he goes by Jim Larinaga now. The tilde came back when he went to Miami, but he was Jim Larinaga. He was the coach of George Mason when they made their run to the Final Four.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yep. So as the tilde got you, yeah. Oh. But just watching it, it's incredible because my bracket is terrible, but I enjoy having this much parity. It's kind of a year-to-year thing. I know last year was a lot of the blue bloods were still in it, but I enjoy having all these young, these mostly unknown teams. I mean, some of the teams, Miami, obviously ACC, UConn, they've won a handful of national championships, but San Diego State and the Owls of FAU, I love it. What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, it's great. It's great for the sport, great for entertainment. This is what the tournament. Before we started, before the tournament started, when we did our first show, we talked about how everybody has an equal chance to win. It doesn't work out that way. A good team usually ends up winning it, but the format of the tournament, every team has a chance, and it's actually come to fruition that way. We've got teams that you would have never picked to make it this far. San Diego State, I don't know how they've done it. Anytime I've watched them, they haven't looked good, but they just keep playing good defense and squeaking through. Florida Atlantic has been so much fun to watch. And like I said, they're legit. They look like they deserve to be here. As strange as that sounds to talk about a Florida Atlantic team that way. Miami, I said they looked like a championship team last week. I didn't think they'd make it this far and actually have a real chance to be a championship team, but they've looked fantastic. They look the part. And UConn, obviously, UConn looks the best of anybody. And like you said, They are the real blue blood that remains, even though they were only a 4 seed. So, yeah, it's teams you didn't think would be here, but aside from San Diego State, I mean, these teams, obviously, to make it this far, they have played well, but they all look like championship-ish teams. They look very good.
And I will say for San Diego State, I mean, their defense certainly looks championship level. Like they will lock down on defense. Now they have a lot of trouble scoring at times, but defensively, you can see why they made it, and that disrupts a lot of more talented teams, I guess you would say. If you have a defense like that, you make the game ugly. And something I saw, there's always contrarian takes. And so after the Purdue upset in the first round, you'd see people who were saying how the tournament is very entertaining, but a poor way to pick a champion. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with it 1,000%, but I don't give a shit. I mean, it is the worst way to pick a champion. I mean, one-off games, anything can happen. You know, Fairleigh Dickinson isn't a better team than Purdue, but you know, so yeah, we did not get the better team that round. However, what more entertaining way is there to do this? And you know, it's not like we're setting up a government to run society or something important. It's sports, it's entertainment, it's supposed to be fun. That's the whole reason basketball was invented, was to have fun and entertain people. So there's no more entertaining way to go about it.
That might be an interesting way to pick candidates for office, though, like a bracket you match up. But no, you're right. Like, this is supposed to be entertaining. Also, do you want a national champion that loses to Fairleigh Dickinson in the first round? Like,
right.
To me, that's proof enough to me right there that Purdue isn't the best team in the country, because they did lose that day when they had all this time to prepare for Fairleigh Dickinson. They got this giant ass team against guys our size, and they lost. So that's a poor, the argument is correct, but the example being put forth isn't the best example, in my opinion. And why would you, who roots for Purdue to win? Who roots for Purdue? And then who roots for them to be at the top of the college basketball world at the expense of upsets and excitement? I don't understand.
Yeah, right. I mean, all sports in America, we don't do the best job of picking the champion. Like baseball, you play a 162 game season. The best team is the team with the best record after that massive sample size. But then we go to a playoffs, the first round's 5 games. Like, this is not the best way to determine who the best team is, but there's nothing funner, aside from this tournament maybe, than playoff baseball. I mean, and you know, the whole point's entertainment. And, you know, using the Dodgers, I just so happened to be wearing the clothes. Last year I think we had the best record. We certainly had the best record in the National League. We were probably the best team in baseball. We're, looking at the lineup, one of the best teams ever assembled. And we fucking choked and lost in 4 games to the Padres in the first round of the playoffs. Are we a better team than the Padres? Sure, but do we deserve to win a title? Fuck no. If your best players can't perform under the lights, you know, all these 300 hitters, 40 home run hitters we had didn't do jack shit when it mattered the most. They don't deserve to win. You know, I don't feel hard done by the setup. You know, we had just as much of a chance as the Padres did, and we choked.
Exactly. To me, particularly if you're the higher seeded team, you come from the bigger conference, and you're set up against these smaller schools, and you know it's March Madness, and you don't show up to play that night and you lose, then you don't deserve the title. Like, boo-hoo, right. I'm sorry, right. I hate it for you. Yep. So, fuck Purdue. But let's move on to the teams who are still in it, the Final 4 teams. We've talked about them. What are you expecting this weekend out of them?
All right, let me go back to the good old 538, who just put up their baseball projections. Got the screen up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Nate Silver cut you out on the baseball thing. He wanted all the focus to be on March Madness.
Yeah, so I was saying the baseball projections had just went up today, and the Dodgers are again projected to be the best team.
That's good news for us.
Yeah. Just very, very quick aside. Dodgers are the best team. What percentage chance do you think it gives us to win the World Series? The highest of any team.
The highest of any team. It's going to be there's so many baseball teams, so many games. I can't imagine it's more than like 11%.
It's dead ass fucking 11. Good.
This is why I've got the show. Ignore my March Madness predictions. Focus on this one. Thank you.
I'm going to add some.
Nate Silver multiple silvers. Brandon Silvers here. That means I'm greater. I'm plural.
I'm adding some units because you got 11 right.
Thank you. See, we both can't be wrong. But yeah, so this is a weird one. I like so we talked about San Diego State with the defense. Florida Atlantic, I think of as more of a high octane offense. So it's a battle of playing styles. Me being the way that I am, I'm definitely pulling for Florida Atlantic. That would be the greater Cinderella story, but also the more aesthetically pleasing to me playing style.
Yep, no question about it. Any neutral is pulling for Florida Atlantic in this game. I don't think there's a doubt about that. It's the smaller school. It's the more Cinderella story. And if you've watched any of the games, like you said, they are the funner team to watch. No question about it.
They remind me of the Florida. They remind me of the Florida Gulf Coast team.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you play basketball in Florida, you have to play a fun style.
So 538 gives San Diego State, unfortunately, a 62% chance to go through. But despite this run that's made, I still got to charge the Mountain West tax here. I think 538 still overvalues these Mountain West schools. So, this feels like more of a coin flip to me, honestly.
And we go way back to the first round. College of Charleston had a chance to beat this team.
Yeah, and that is interesting. The teams in the Final Four, like you say, San Diego State barely got by Charleston. Florida Atlantic really barely got by Memphis. We talked about the timeout debacles.
Yeah, Penny Hardaway didn't keep calling timeouts, then Memphis could be here.
Yeah, both of those teams just started playing a lot better after that first round. Florida, they beat Tennessee easily, didn't they? I mean, it wasn't that close, was it?
No.
UConn, did they ever have any trouble? I don't think they really ever had a lot of trouble, did they?
No, they've looked extremely well put together. Offensively, defensively, well coached.
Yeah, they look like a 1 seed, honestly. And then Miami, what was the most trouble they had? I mean, they beat Indiana easily. They beat Houston by double digits. They beat Texas by double digits, didn't they?
Yeah, they've looked solid throughout. And we've talked before about how their offense kind of flows, where they just make it easy.
Yep, and play hard defense. Like whenever they needed to. The main game I watched of theirs was against Indiana because I had those real units on Indiana. So yeah, anytime Indiana even started to make a run, Miami just fucking shut the door. I mean, they play hard, hit the offensive glass hard, and they're just complete, man.
Yeah, like that right side of the bracket, the Miami UConn matchup, like the team that wins that is probably the best team.
Yeah,
but I don't care about that. I want. Let's continue. Florida Atlantic. If Florida Atlantic wins, then guess what? They're the champion. I declare it as well.
That would be the most. Would that be the craziest national title ever in any sport? I can't think of a stranger national champion than Florida Atlantic.
As far as like a small school pulling it off, I'm sure we're forgetting someone, but the first one that comes to mind for me is Coastal Carolina baseball.
That's a great comp. Yep. And that would, yep. Yeah, that is what it would be. That it would be analogous to that for sure.
Which is great for the sport, like for men's college basketball. That's incredible because you hear rumblings of they might change the tournament format and this, that, and the other. And I know every power conference school wants to do their own thing. That's what college football has taught us. But if you touch this fucking tournament, buddy.
Yeah, this is perfect. I mean, it's just perfect. I mean, aside from baseball, which we talked about, the baseball format is extremely similar to the basketball format. They just, instead of one-off games, there's series and double elimination mini tournaments and stuff going on, but the bracket is exactly the same. So, and then in baseball produced the Coastal Carolina national champion. This one here's got a chance to produce a Florida Atlantic national champion. So high entertainment value.
Amen. So what do you think? What's Nate Silver saying is going to happen? And let's see if he's right or wrong in our opinion.
So San Diego State, 25% chance. Miami, 20. UConn, 40. UConn, the heavy favorite to win the tournament, still under 50%. But he's got them as a heavy favorite to win it, and he gets no disagreement from me. They look like the Shark team here.
Yeah, like I said, they're just offense, defense. Danny Hurley as a coach is incredible. They got perimeter scoring. They got inside scoring. They got rebounding. They're the most complete team left, I believe.
Yeah, no question about that. But, I mean, if you had to pick any of these teams to knock them off, there's no question I would choose Miami. They play good enough defense to – I guess San Diego State, you'd say, could disrupt them, but Miami plays good enough defense to mess them up, and, they can score with them too, potentially. So –
yeah, that's not going to be San Diego State will not be able to score with them. And they really tried to give away that game against Creighton. Like they were just fighting to do it. And their late game execution has been very confusing at times. I would say in the close games in particular, it's mostly the team that they're playing has shot themselves in the foot more than San Diego State.
Yeah. So, you want to make some picks?
Let's do it.
All right. So the odds, we just saw the percentages there. San Diego State is a minus 132 money line favorite over Florida Atlantic, minus 1.5 on the point spread. So Vegas is expecting a very close game here. Miami, Connecticut, as good as Miami looked, they're a pretty sizable dog. Connecticut is a minus 5.5 point favorite and a minus 257 on the money line, so almost 2.6 to 1 odds. My picks, I'm gonna pick both games because there's only 2 left. I've got to take that minus 132 with San Diego State. The defense wins championships, they say. And, there's a history in the Final Four. Once they start playing in these big arenas, teams can't shoot. Yeah. At least that's the theory. Do you have any thoughts on that? That seems to happen every year.
Yeah, I haven't experienced it personally, but every year you always hear about it. They're in a big arena. It throws off the depth perception, this, that, and the other.
Yeah. And nervousness. Does that has to? I think it's such a big stage too. I mean,
probably has more to do with it than depth perception. Yeah. If I'm being honest, that would make more sense than that. But because the hoop is where it always is on every court. Yes.
But as we will get to in a minute, the balls may get bouncier.
Mm.
So I'll go San Diego State. I'm going to take the more defensively sound team against the 3-point happy team at this stage of the tournament. And I'm going to stick with Miami. I'm going to take that plus 217. I think UConn's going to win, but I mean, with those odds, I'm getting over 2-1 odds with this Miami team. I have to always take that. It worked out last round. That's just, that's too many. That's too much to be given them. So I'm going to take Miami, knowing I'm probably going to lose, but I've got a pretty decent chance, and I'm getting double my money of value. So I'm gonna take the underdog in that side.
Wow. So since we might not have another episode before the national championship game because I'm doing the Cooper River Bridge run this weekend and I might just be too tired and too much madness, who do you think ends up winning the national championship?
It feels stupid to pick a team that I didn't even bet on to make the game, but I mean, UConn is the favorite, and they should be the favorite. They just look the best. I mean, how could you pick anybody else? They look like the 1 seed. It looks like they should have a 1 next to their name.
Absolutely. And their coach, Danny Hurley, Bobby Hurley's brother, that dude is so fired up on the sideline all the time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like you got guys like Brad Underwood at Illinois and everything who they're fired up because they want to cuss out a young kid who doesn't have the same amount of power that they have. But he's like fired up, like he might check into the game and play full court press defense himself.
Yeah.
So I like watching coaches like that.
Yeah.
So no, I think UConn, as we've been saying this whole time, not really. Their holes aren't the holes of the other teams left.
Yeah. Yep.
So you said bounce your balls. I just said the holes aren't the holes of the other team. We've got bounce your balls. Bounce your balls. The women's tournament. Explain.
So let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and share my screen as well here.
And this side of the tournament, this has been, I was just reading the stats for viewership in the women's tournament has really increased.
Really? That's great.
It's almost like if you put it on TV when people can see it and it's on a normal channel, people will watch it. What an odd concept.
Yeah, and the women's game has gotten better. It continues to get better. The WNBA has gotten extremely good. I think NCAA has gotten extremely good as well. I mean, you see a team like Iowa, who we're about to play. I mean, is there a more entertaining basketball team anywhere? I don't know. So this team here, they're coached by Kim Mulkey, and she was, I don't remember which game it was after, but apparently LSU missed a lot of shots and not enough to lose, obviously, but they missed a lot of shots, and she was explaining that she thinks the balls are bouncier.
Yeah, I think that was after the Miami game in the Elite Eight, because I know Angel Reese could not hit a layup. She was like 0 for her first 9 or something ridiculous.
Yep, that's right.
And the score was super low. Everyone was on Twitter was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? But Kim, who has some questionable wardrobe choices, she put forth the bouncy ball theory.
Yeah, and obviously I, like most people, dismiss this, but I watched South Carolina, Maryland, and some of these layups we missed, like the ball, it bounced like 5 foot straight up on a missed layup. It was really weird. Did I just make this up?
No, it didn't react like you're used to seeing it react. And sometimes I wonder too, like they all play with the same ball in the tournament. but I believe that they all play with their sponsors ball at their home court.
Mm.
And then I don't know too, like maybe you're super jacked up, particularly early Elite Eight game, and you're just putting too much into it. So there's a bunch of different factors at play, but you could definitely see where the ball, it looked like it could be a little inflate gate-ish.
Yes. Yeah, I think your theory about just being a little fired up is probably the correct answer. But I'm going to go ahead and just say I think Kim Mulkey is a well-dressed genius because I agree with her. So we didn't get we almost got the super entertaining Final Four. We were thinking UConn was going to make the Final Four, and then that was going to be a LSU UConn matchup. We instead get LSU Virginia Tech, and then this side did work out how we hoped. South Carolina Iowa. We've been chomping at the bit for this game for 2 years because seeing what Caitlin Clark's doing, and we were on a path to play them last year as well, and they got knocked out. They were a 2 seed last year and got knocked out by a 10 seed, I think.
Yeah.
So, we finally get the South Carolina Iowa matchup, and I'll go ahead and say I'm going to go ahead and pick LSU. I want to spend all of our time talking about South Carolina Iowa. But just to get this side out of the way, LSU 60% chance to advance according to Nate Silver. Do you have any disagreements with that?
No, they're stacked. They had a little bit of trouble towards the end of the regular season and in the conference tournament where they didn't look fantastic. And you wondered how much their out of conference schedule, it wasn't the strongest one, had to factor into them struggling when they had to play the South Carolinas and the Tennessees. Yeah. But they are on track now. Kim Mulkey, like lover or hater, she's been here before. They've got a ton of talent. Virginia Tech's a great team, but LSU is LSU.
Is this Kim Mulkey's second year or first year at LSU?
Second year, I believe.
Okay. They obviously extremely impressive. They already have this team to the Final Four.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So the matchup Friday at 9:00, I believe, that we obviously care the most about and the nation cares the most about. Dawn Staley versus Iowa and Caitlin Clark. So what's your initial thoughts? Nate Silver has us as an 80% chance to go through. Strong favorite, but man, that's a 1 in 5 chance we can lose, which is a lot bigger chance than it has been.
Yeah, so they definitely scare me. Caitlin Clark is incredible. She had a 40-point triple-double against Louisville.
Yep.
She's going to be the National Player of the Year. They have another girl, Monica Zanano. She's a very good player as well. Warnock, another player. They have talent outside of Clark too, and their ability to score scares me. Combined with how we get into some cold stretches.
Yeah. So our game against Maryland, we talked all year how every team we play loads the paint up against us, makes us shoot. Maryland didn't really do that.
No.
They didn't do anything really tricky on defense. And we got into a little bit of a high-scoring affair with them. And, I was encouraged to see how I don't remember what the final score was, but we scored a ton. We hit a lot of shots. So we have seen this a few times because, like we said, just about every team loads the paint up and makes it an ugly game against us. But the last several years, there's a few times where we can get into an 80 something point game and win it. So that was encouraging to see that we have the ability to do that if we need to. Iowa can certainly get you into that type of ball game, but that's not really what I'm expecting.
Huh. Because based on, I will say, the way that Maryland played us, I think benefits us heading into this game.
Yeah.
Because it kind of lets some people who hadn't really gotten loose yet kind of get loose offensively.
Yeah.
So I think that's great for us. And I think it was really the best chance that Maryland had against us, just based on their lack of size. So their coach, Brenda Freeze, she's won a national championship before. You can definitely see why, because that was their best chance. And they hung around a while too.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see what kind of game are you expecting then?
Well, we are certainly vastly more talented than anybody, including Iowa. And I feel like the more talented team is going to make it. Usually they're going to make it the game that they want it to be. We're an elite defensive team. Brea Beal actually didn't really have a typical Brea Beal defensive game against Maryland. I think she was probably looking ahead to Caitlin Clark chomping at the bit, because we had some question of her defensive ability, not by me, earlier in the year. And that's her calling card. She wants to lock the best player down one-on-one. We've seen her do it to Paige Beckers. Caitlin Clark's always going to get hers, but I think Brea Beal is going to have an outstanding performance, and I think we're going to turn it into the game we want it to be and probably end up winning by 10 or 15.
Yeah, it makes me nervous, but when I look at like the players we've talked about, Zenano, she's great, as I said, but a little bit smaller for a big, certainly smaller than you run out Aliyah Boston and Camila Cardoso.
Yeah.
There's not too many people who aren't smaller than them. So I don't think she's going to be able to really get off like she normally does. But yeah, the Beal-Caitlin Clark matchup, Caitlin Clark is great and deserves every bit of recognition she's received. But the Gamecocks have been tired of hearing about Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we thought we were getting this last year and we didn't. Somewhat of a disappointment. So, and we didn't get the Sabrina Ionescu matchup back in the day either, thanks to coach. We have ran into UConn and Stanford late in these tournaments, and that's always great. But this is the matchup. I think this is the matchup I've looked most forward to seeing.
Yeah, because you've got so many different storylines here. Caitlin Clark, like I said, probably going to be named, rightfully so, National Player of the Year. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the way that the Gamecocks play is not conducive to Aliyah Boston putting up numbers that she would need to do that. But there's got to be something inside of Aliyah that's like, I'm here to show, even though I'm not going to get that award, I am the best player in the nation.
Yep.
Then you mentioned Brea Beal, who had a great offensive game, by the way, against Maryland. Like, she was on fire.
Yeah.
But I do think, because there was some, like you said, some talk in the middle of the year, beginning of the year, where it's like, okay, is she overrated defensively, this, that, and the other? This is the person to prove yourself against. Like, you shut down Caitlin Clark, that answers the question. There's no more talking about it. It's Caitlin Clark, who people are prisoner of the moment. They're talking about she's the greatest women's college basketball player ever, this, that, and the other. That's a little extreme, but offensively, she's incredible. And also Iowa, we've talked about their offense because their defense leaves a lot to be desired. So I just don't know what they do. They're going to all have to be on fire.
Right. And that is possible.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm confident we're going to play really good defense. I'm confident Brea Beal is going to play great defense. And like we said, if we need to, we can score also. We're not known as an offensive team. We certainly don't have a pretty flowing offense, but when you're getting 48% of potential offensive rebounds, when you've got Aliyah Boston in the post, you can get your points. If you need Zia Cook, she'll go on cold stretches shooting, but I mean, late in the shot clock, who would you rather have with the ball in your hand?
Yeah.
It makes me, infinitely more than I do about all basketball, certainly NBA, but I'm going to make an NBA comp. The Miami Heat with LeBron, D Wade, and Bosh, they never had like a pretty offense, but if they needed a bucket, they were going to get it because they had fucking LeBron, D Wade, and Bosh, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how I feel about us. Like, we're not Iowa, we're not spreading the ball around, beautiful ball movement, hitting threes, yada yada, but every player on the floor can score if they need to.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Talent. Yeah.
And I'm also curious because I believe it was The Athletic released an article where they polled, I forget who they polled, might have been other coaches or something, and it did not list Dawn Staley as one of the top X's and O's coaches in women's college basketball.
Yeah.
Because when you think X's and O's, you think offense, where defense is a lot of X's and O's. So I think that's another storyline, and something I'm interested in seeing is the strategy that she puts in to shut down Iowa's offense.
Right.
Because I think for me with Caitlin Clark, she is infinitely more dangerous when she's also a passer.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to let her go off. This is what, when the Suns had Steve Nash and he was winning MVPs, I remember teams would do that where they would let Nash in the playoffs. I think he did it against the Mavericks a couple of times, get 40, 50 points. Yeah. Just so long as he's not letting everyone else get theirs, because they're like, he's not going to beat us single-handedly. So I'm very curious to see what Dawn does in that regard too.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great point. Like, she does not and has never had really a high-powered, beautiful, flowing offense. So, sure, you can say she's not the best X's and O's coach, but yeah, the way we shut teams down defensively, like, she deserves some credit for that,
Yeah, because that is defense. There's so much that goes into defense that I don't see how you can't consider X's and O's. And I will say our offense has kind of morphed along with our personnel, which she has to have something to do with that too. Just because it's not a beautiful offense, that might be because we don't have the pieces right now to run a beautiful type offense. It makes more sense to do like an efficient, like you were talking about Miami Heat. We need a bucket. We can go get a bucket this way. It don't always have to look great if it goes in the hoop.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, the 48% offensive rebound stat, and it's not pretty buckets, but that's consistent source of offense. And I any conversation about South Carolina women's basketball, I always go back to that COVID year team that we were robbed of a national title.
Yeah.
That team did have a good offense.
Yep.
Tyisha Harris running the point, and Kiki Herbert Harrigan was able to stretch the floor, hitting those shots from kind of a stretch four player. That was a beautiful offensive team. So it's not like it's impossible for us to run, for us to have that.
Yeah, that's a great point too. So, like I said, I think she's got it in her arsenal if she needs it. But I think defensively, we talked about it with San Diego State, defense travels. That's the focus right now, and that's extra important against Iowa, because as much as I think as we can do on offense, I'd rather not get into a shootout with Iowa.
Yeah, there's no need to.
No. So this is the most sports heavy I think I've ever been on a show. It makes me. What do you think Kim Mulkey's going to wear? I think she's going with a nice armadillo skinned teal jacket and like a nice feather boa from ostrich feathers.
Anybody in sports and life, anything, anybody that just fucking does their thing, I respect it. So, when she showed up with them pink frills hanging off the sleeves, like, whatever, fuck, you do you. I'm with it.
I think one of her players was like, I told her that everyone is going to be talking shit about you on Twitter, and she's not going to hear a word of it because she's just not on Twitter. She just pulled out her damn antelope jacket and threw that bad boy on.
Yep, I love it.
So let's get back to sports, I guess, since I feel more comfortable now that we've talked about her wardrobe. What do you think is going to happen between, you picked the one game, you said 10, 15 points South Carolina win?
Yep.
And looking past that, you think the South Carolina national championship as well?
Yeah, because, we've got the harder game now.
Yep.
Most likely we're going to face LSU. We beat the shit out of them one time we faced them.
Drilled them.
Yeah. Like I think we said last week, LSU, they're the team we were 7-8 years ago, right? They're growing, they're very good, but when they run into that wall, they fucking hit it and fall down. And that's, they'll break through it at some point. I don't have any doubt, but not yet.
And go look at, if you don't believe in South Carolina's defense, go look at Angel Reese's numbers against everyone who wasn't South Carolina, and then what she did against South Carolina.
Yeah.
And
that speaks to that too. Yeah, that's that defense showing up in the big game, and that's what I'm expecting here too. That LSU game was the biggest game of the regular season, certainly of the conference slate. And we had played some close games. We weren't totally, obviously, locked in enough to remain undefeated, but we showed up that game and just pounded them. And that, I think that's what a talented defensive focused team can do at any moment.
Yeah, I've said it a million times. The Lady Gamecocks remind me a lot of Kim Mulkey's belts, like a giant anaconda. Where no matter what happens over the course of the game, you just know, like, eventually they're going to suffocate you to death. And Ice Cube might be there. Maybe J-Lo will make an appearance. John Voight, incredible movie. Go watch it. But it's like an anaconda.
I went and saw that in the theaters when I was like 5.
I bet that was a hell of an experience.
That was. But yeah, when you enter the floor against South Carolina, you are wrapped up by the anaconda. The anaconda is already wrapped around you.
Yep, it's just
a
matter of time.
Started squeezing yet. Yeah, and you might load the paint up and not let us shoot. Force us to shoot threes, and we might get to missing them. It might look like you're going to wriggle out of it, but it just gets tighter and tighter.
Yep. Ice Cube isn't there to save you. It's just Kim Mulkey sometimes, maybe Caitlin Clark, but like the anaconda might eat you and then throw you back up like John Voight. I cannot imagine watching that movie at the age of 5. I bet that shit was terrifying.
I just remember being in the theater. I don't remember. And I remember the boy getting puked out of the anaconda. I do remember that. I've only vaguely remember Ice Cube being there.
Yeah, he was the hero.
Okay.
And he's not going to show up. Him and J-Lo aren't going to show up this weekend. So I agree. The Lady Gamecocks are going to repeat as national champions.
Yep. That is the 65% chance to happen according to Nate Silver. I think it's even higher than that.
Yep. So is there anything we haven't covered?
I think that's it.
Let's see. We got men's tournament, women's tournament, 90s movies starring Ice Cube. I think we're good. So you mentioned the Nate Silver 538 projection. So I would be remiss if I did not bring up the 2023 Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silver's MLB preview featuring Brett and Danny Foxworth from At the Plate with Danny Foxworth. I just gestured as though he was beside me. He is not, but he is in the podcast. Check that out. The 19 most exciting players in the game today, including one repeat who you will never guess was the repeat player. But yeah, like I said, I don't know about an episode Monday simply because I don't know. This is my first time running the bridge, so y'all might not ever see me again. I might go to the great Anaconda in the sky or whatever. I'm not going to be able to get this out of my head now. But I'll be back soon enough. This has been another episode of Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. I will see y'all later.